Okay, so to get us started, we're first going to hear from Los Angeles County and I think National Dark Sky Board member and astronomer Mike Simmons. And then he is going to be followed up by award-winning lighting designer Catherine Toth. And they are going to talk about why dark skies are important and what that means. So, Mike, without further ado, I'll give it to you. And you're muted still. Wait.
Just there, you caught me a little unprepared, so I'm just arranging a window here so I can see what I'm doing. That was quick for taking care of business, so alrighty.
Play game. Oh, so while Mike is doing that, that's a good reminder. Everyone who is not speaking, please mute yourself. Also, there will be Q&As after Mike and Catherine finish speaking. And I will post any questions you have into the chat, and I will be moderating that later. And then we are going to have a break for about 5 minutes at the hour, and then David is going to be talking to us about the fixtures and control options that FX presents. And then we also have another speaker from another lighting vendor, and we'll talk more about that later. But we will have two Q&A sessions, and we will have a break on the hour. Okay, now Mike, go ahead.
Okay, so as mentioned, I'm a member of the board of the Dark Sky International, which used to be International Dark Sky Association. It was started for astronomers, really, at Kitt Peak in Arizona, but it's expanded to all kinds of different things because it's important. And I'm going to talk just very briefly about why we care about dark skies in the first place before Catherine gets into the nitty-gritty about what you can do about it. So I like this quote from Martin Luther King, only in the darkness can you see the stars? And that's literally true for us. And this is a picture, I honestly don't know who took this one, but it's clearly in out in the Antelope Desert or farther east with the Joshua trees there. Well, this is what we think of most of the time. People think of with astronomy, and these things are fantastic. This from one of the space telescopes, but this is actually in a nebula that you can see with the naked eye. If you're in a dark place, you can see this. It doesn't look like that. You won't see the colors. You won't see those little fingers and all that, but it's there, and you can see it for yourself. It's not something distant, and in fact, you can recognize the Milky Way here, which is actually our own galaxy that we're seeing, in this case, seen from photographed by a friend in China. While if you're down in Madagascar and you have the baobab trees, you'll see the Milky Way there as well. And so this is one of the things that most people don't even realize. They don't know they're even missing what we have had as part of human existence since the very beginning until the last 100 plus years. And then we just completely wiped it out. It's an important cultural thing, too. And this is just an example of one of the cultures that uses, in this case, the center of the Milky Way, which is right overhead in Australia, where this part of the Milky Way, which is the center of our galaxy, is known to as the emu. And that apparently is supposed to represent an emu. Well, because this is what we see most of the time. This was in Ontario, Canada, um, several years back, but then the power went out one time, and that's what they saw. And that's the way it was for millennia up until we came along and lit the sky up. So I won't go into too much about the different kinds of light pollution. I want to leave most of this to Catherine. But there are a couple of things that, as far as landscaping, we can be aware of. One is glare. That's when somebody shines a light into your eyes. There's no point in having headlights or streetlights or anything else shining in your eyes. It only is counterproductive. Like trespass is when you shine your lights into somebody else's window or anywhere on their property. Why would we want to waste the light going there? Well, so what's really disturbing here is that light pollution is increasing at close to 10% per year. That is a project that has been under dark sky for many, many years where citizens go out wherever they are and measure the night sky. You can either get an inexpensive meter to do it, or you can just record which stars you can and can't see. And in Los Angeles and Orange County, it's not easy, but it is really, really important. And that was a landmark paper. Um, Here, the one thing I want to point out here is the color temperature. I'll leave it to Catherine, but since blue LEDs, they call them white, they're really very blue, were invented, it's being used more and more and in greater numbers because it's so efficient. So here, this is Sao Paulo, Brazil. Well, you can see the very bright areas are very whitish. The darker areas, if you look, you'll see there's lighting there, but it's a different color, it's a different kind, and it is far less harmful because the new bluish lights really impact human health. There are a lot of studies, the American Medical Association has been out for years talking about how harmful it is, all the way up to and including cancer. Obviously, if you have lights shining in your face or it's too bright in your bedroom, you can't really sleep. And then there are the nocturnal habitats, and every one of you does landscape lighting.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thank you so
That's
much
wonderful.
for that wonderful introduction of what the problem is and how we can fix it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Catherine Toth. I'm an architectural and landscape lighting designer, uh, and I'm the principal of Thea Lighting Design. I'm based in Orange County. Uh, I I'm coming to you on behalf of ILI. ILI stands for the International Landscape Lighting Institute. It is a nonprofit organization dedicated to inform, educate, and promote the art and technology of landscape lighting. And I started my career in lighting design by working on many international, actually, retail and interior and exterior plazas. So I was, a newbie figuring things out, and it took a while for me to get into the residential and high-end residential sector. But by the time I got there, I was working on some really lovely projects, and I got introduced to Jan Moyer. I was doing the interiors of a compound, and then Jan Moyer was doing the landscape lighting. And Jan Moyer is the founder of ILI. After I finally got a chance to go to her intensive course in 2010, it took me a while of waiting because they used to only hold one course per year, and it was always a long wait time. It totally opened my eyes, and the experience changed the way that I approach my designs. Since then, I've been very active with ILI and continue to learn and improve my projects. On absolutely every project is a learning opportunity. We'll be viewing some of ILI's collaborative work in a few slides, and they're woven into this project. I can answer most questions if you have some at the end about any of the slides. So we're here today to discuss our light pollution issues. And as Mike introduced the situation, all of lighting pollution is caused by artificial light at night, abbreviated as ALAN. So if you ever hear that, that's what that means. It's the overuse of artificial lighting, and it costs more for unnecessary power that we just don't really need. Along with that expense and the environmental impacts of the unnecessary energy, we all know that we have this lighting pollution issue that affects our wildlife and humans. Some of those brief reasons that Mike didn't go into: sea turtles get really confused by the bright electric lights installed beside the beach. And instead of heading towards the sunrise and the water, they get exhausted by going inland and they die before they can get to the ocean. That's usually why people are talking about the sea turtles. And in the upper left image, you can see this is the bird migration paths worldwide. These paths are shown on top of the worldwide lighting pollution map. And this is an older image, but you can see North America, where we are, and how many birds are migrating over where we are right now. These migratory birds get confused by the bright lights and the illuminated buildings, especially overlit exterior spaces, and the lit windows from glowing inside, like during the night, especially all those empty office buildings and spaces that are just not even being used, but they leave the lights on. They think it's more security, right? Well, it would be helpful to make sure that the buildings and the spaces outside that are not in use have the lights dimmed or turned off completely, just to help the migratory birds make their natural migration. Not to mention the bats and the other insects and nocturnal animals affected by the light pollution. Some bats love the extra lights. They say, oh, this is wonderful. It draws all these insects right out here. It's like a feast. So easy feeding ground, how fun. Well, there are other types of bats that are absolutely confused by this artificial light. And if the light is too close to their roots, the highlight levels can confuse them and make them think that the sun is still up. So they miss out on all this extra time at night that they normally would be feeding, because their internal clock said, oh, the sun's still up. It's not time to go out there and have dinner. So the artificial lights can alert, also the artificial lights can alert bat predators to their roosts so they can see them and find them and then get eaten, which is not good. So insects such as fireflies use bioluminescence to communicate and attract mates. Light polluted environments make it very difficult for female fireflies to differentiate between male fireflies and artificial lights. We just want them to have a good date night, folks. That's all we're looking for, these poor little fireflies. So there is even proof that artificial lighting impacts tree plant growth. If you have a tree right beside a light, the leaves are typically thicker, less transparent or translucent, and they're more opaque. And all of this seems pretty obvious. Like, we know how successful that horticultural lighting has been over the past few decades, but still, it's like there's more and more studies coming out and published on this every day. It's easy to gain the information. All you have to do is do a couple searches. You're going to find a lot more information than I just mentioned. When architect and ILI board member Jeff Cam and I wrote the original summary of this talk, we were compelled by our current exterior lighting approach because it's really failed. And that's where we started. We were just annoyed by experiencing these overlit and glary exterior lighting spaces that has become the norm in our culture and our neighborhood. We know what we have going on now is absolutely failing. So as designers, how do we fix this? And we understand that so much of this natural environment is being unnaturally brightened at night by our current methods. So how can we do better? Here's a quick reminder of the 5 basic principles for outdoor lighting recommendations from Dark Sky. Is it useful? Is it targeted? Is it a low light level? Is it controlled? And is it a warm color temperature? Is it useful? Is it helping anyone? Well, the image on the left does have path lights that are lighting the walking path, but the walking path is not the brightest thing. The thing that my eye goes towards is the lights because they're very glary. And it seems a little bit overlit with a lot of this indirect light, not really super helpful. And on the right-hand side, you can see a pathway along the river. It's being lit. It's one of my projects. It's in Belgrade. It does seem brighter than necessary. So the only good thing is it doesn't have any uplight component, right? But it's still too much light, but it's useful. So it did check the box on that part. In this image, ILI demonstrates another approach to path and area lighting. The planting and the sculpture at the end of this lawn provides a visual destination, and it draws you towards the main entry. I'm going to get my laser pointer. Ooh, this is very exciting. Now I won't be able to get rid of it, and we're going to have this laser pointer floating around the lecture the rest of the time. So this visual destination draws you in, and it guides you towards this main entry on the left. You can see whenever you get up closer, these trees are lit more. You know exactly where you're going. Most of the time, the owner of this residence doesn't really use their front door. They like to have everybody turn down the left pathway, which is why it's a little bit brighter. So, but still, the planting and the sculpture at the end of this lawn, it provides a visual destination, and it draws you towards the main entry on the left. But this visual destination draws you into the space and you can see the perimeter of the space. So you feel nice and safe. Anytime you can see this perimeter of the space and there's no dark, creepy corners, then you feel safer. We're always looking to guide the eye with the lighting. The sidewalk immediately on the left leads you to the secondary entry, and that's this view. The steps and the pathway are lit with downlights from above, creating a safe step transition. This frees up the planting bed for annuals and perennials so that the bed is not cluttered with path lights. The bollard light at the end of the pathway and by the entry is brighter, and it draws your eye and you towards the secondary entry. Are the lights targeted? This is the light where we need it. Is it needlessly uplighting the world? Or does it comply with the basic requirement of downlight only that Dark Sky recommends? This visual on the left shows on the left the useful light is the dark yellow, but all the other light is viewed as unnecessary and truly light pollution from the dark sky. Everything up is bad. On the right-hand side is another diagram. While it's simplistic, it really shows a very bad situation to a better situation that's recommended by Dark Sky, where we're at least not shining needlessly up into the sky. A lot of our landscape lighting doesn't meet these requirements. So let's talk through a little bit of that. But here's a good example of targeted landscape lighting. And it's shown here that we have downlights on this trellis to downlight this step that's right here so that everybody coming the other way, they can find and nobody's going to fall down the steps. The sculpture at the end of the lawn, it gives you this great visual destination. It draws your eye the whole way through the space. We're still using and targeting the steps and this patio area. If you had too many glasses of wine, you don't fall. Here's another example of how a downlit stair makes it a safer transition for us to navigate to the beach entry. The downlights are balanced with uplights on the palm trees, but it's very easy for us to control this separately. And we're going to get to that control is number 4 on the list. So we're going to talk about that like 15 times between now and then. Is everything a low light level? Here we are. This is an apartment building, and they have a pool deck that has the lights on the entire night. Is that necessary? Probably not. It is not a low light level. It is a very high light level. It is unnecessarily high, and it's so bright that on the left-hand side, you can see how bright it is, but these palm trees, you can barely notice. And on the right-hand side image, you can see that there's actually landscape lighting, uplighting these palm trees. But because the pool lights and the bollard lights around the pool are so bright, you can't even tell. So everything should be lowered. Pool decks is a whole other thing. If you guys ever want to talk pool decks with me, give me a call. We talk. But in general, our country has some really weird rules about basically performing surgery on, with the light levels, you could perform surgery, or at least put a good Band-Aid on and clean out the wound and everything because the light is so bright on the pool decks. We don't need to go into it too much. But in general, we need less light for the most part. And if you're in an emergency, if you have a commercial environment, you can always turn the lights up bright whenever there is an emergency or somebody pulls the fire alarm or such like that. But in our residential areas, a low light level is perfectly fine. You can see here that they use path lights around the perimeter of this pool, and with the illumination of the palm trees and the lights from inside the home, there's a good balance. The lower light level creates a safe but comfortable and relaxing scene. Is it controlled? Ooh. Sorry, I'm trying to get rid of my thing and make the, I guess it's not going to work. Oh, that's definitely not going to work. Okay, so there's a video here, and it basically shows this bollard changing light levels. It's a lower light level, but it also changes to higher light level. And my question is how bright does it really need to be? How much brightness do we really need? As if we are okay with the lower light setting, then why can't we just keep it at the lower light setting? It doesn't need to do that toggle from the low to the high. This bollard is at a UCLA. It has the sensor, but I don't think we really need that higher light level. And I understand that we're on a campus, but if you saw the rest of the campus, you'd know that their light levels are all over the place. And trust me, this light bumping from a low light level to a high level is not really contributing to any kind of safety. Warm color temperature. Mike touched on this. We're seeing this transition happen across the world where we're taking low pressure sodium on the left-hand side image. You see this street with the old lighting that was there, and you can see the new LED bright, probably 5,000 Kelvin color temperature, cool white, blue light being replaced throughout the cities, and how much worse that kind of looks environmentally. It's mostly about the animals. There's a lot of animals that they are not bothered by this warm amber tone, like the turtles. They can't see that well. They are used to the moonlight, and the moonlight's more like this cool white, right? And so they see that more than they see the amber tones. In landscape lighting, the question is really, do you need that? Do you need 4,000 Kelvin? Can't we get away with 3,000? Now, if you have a whole bunch of evergreens, yes, you can tell the difference if you're lighting some dark green plant material. But for the most part, a 3,000 Kelvin light fixture is absolutely fine on the plant material. You can see on the left-hand side image, 2,700 Kelvin, that's a warm white. 3,000 Kelvin is the nice warm white. We don't really want to go cooler than that, which would be 4,000 Kelvin or 5,000 Kelvin. We want to stay away from that. It's not dark sky recommended. Now, for the most part, I have switched over, and I used to be this big believer in 3,000 Kelvin for everything. And now I'm all like, the more I'm out there in the spaces, I lend more towards the 2,700 Kelvin and absolutely think it looks cozier. My clients like it, especially on the residential side. They just prefer it, that cozier look. So I have a couple other images about LEDs and color. And this is a little bit off the cuff, but at the same time, I want to make sure we cover it because a lot of people are like, ooh, we can do color changing. Well, isn't that nice? But is color helping this composition at all? Because to me, it looks a little bit like the color wheel had the stomach flu, okay? It's not a great example of what to do. It's just I can't tell what the plant material is. I can't tell where we're supposed to look. I don't know where to go. There's just like random things happening. So if you're going to use color, be intentional with it. Make sure the composition and the design is still solid so that the color is not distracting or taking away from your landscape, the landscape plant and all of the design that you put in and the work that you put into the project. You can also let nature do the color for you. Now, I understand that we are in Southern California and we do not get this beautiful thing to happen with these maple trees. These maple trees are in upstate New York, but if you ever have clients that have the ability, have seasons where the trees get a chance to turn this beautiful color, you just let them be the focal point of the composition whenever they're going to be beautiful for those couple months of the year. In this mock-up installation, the blue heron on the left is lit with blue light only. Now, this is a really interesting use. Now, that blue herring is the rustiest, rusty metal you could ever imagine. You'd never imagine that it's not blue during the daytime. It is seriously the rustiest metal sculpture I've ever seen. So it's a dark rust color. And they were able to light it with the blue light, and that's just for that. And the contrasting with the tree on the right-hand side with full color on the right, it makes a really lovely composition. And it's a one-off, it's special. Here we are from another vantage point, but you can see the blue heron really stands out against the green. The subtle color changes make more of an impact than overwhelming amounts of colored light. So this is how we can help our clients have tasteful installations by giving them what they want in a way they cannot imagine without your help and your expertise. So we have dark sky approved fixtures. It's a whole other thing, but I don't think that's always going to fix the problem because, we just talked about it. We looked at that video and we know that downlight only isn't solving only all of our problems. Most of the light pollution was being caused by the overlit spaces, reflecting the light from the ground into the atmosphere. They had mostly downlight spaces in those images that were in our video. So, but if you can search the dark sky approved luminaires. And these are some good examples where there's some glare control, there's downlight only, and really we're trying to mitigate how much view of the light source that you have. And that really does eliminate a lot of the glare and a lot of the light pollution. Even these fixtures here, I wouldn't let those on my project. Not that I wouldn't let those on my project. I would dim the daylights out of these lights in a heartbeat, and then I'd let them be on my project. See, just dim them. This is another example. We're stepping farther away, and there's a man on the left-hand side of this pole, and you can see him, but you can barely see him. You can't identify anything. Now, here we are, we're doing sophisticated glare control where we're just using my hand to cover everything. And we're just removing the glare, and it can drastically change the perceived brightness and the safety, and our visibility is greatly improved as soon as we eliminate that glare. So we're going to change gears and talk about a couple ILI projects. These images are ILI mockups, and we realized that these lighting mockups were designed with the intent to be low light levels with little to no glare in order to enhance gardens and the user's experience. We had permission and encouragement from the client and the cities where these projects were based. So please note that all of these mockups were completed with low voltage lighting, less than 10 watts for each of the fixtures. Typically, there are less than 5 watts actually. And all the light sources are less than 800 delivered lumens, and many are actually less than 150 lumens. The ILI intensive course attendees were asked to illuminate Mercer Botanic Gardens in Houston, Texas in these next slides. The gardens typically close at 5 p.m. in the winter and the sunset during the other seasons of the year because they have no existing lighting on site. It's just not safe for them to stay open. So in this image, notice that the path light is not right beside the path, but it's right here. It's integrated into the plantings, and it lights part of the pathway and the plants below it. It balances the composition while still giving some light to the walking area. The dappled light works fine on this smooth, flat surface. It's an example of a non-traditional approach to using bollards or path lights.
So we had one question in the chat. This is from Deborah Glicksman. She said that she always uses 2700 Kelvin for everything except for downlighting from trees, where she uses 3000 Kelvin for to simulate moonlight. And she's wondering if she should just use 2700 Kelvin for everything from now on to be more dark skies compliant.
It's not a bad idea, but that is as long as it's 3000 she's using, then that's fine. But I on the maintenance side, I think that that's the more of a one of the problems. Maintaining 2 different color temperatures on a project can sometimes be a little bit of a conundrum.
So one of the other things that we've been taught is that originally, well, back in the day that we were talking about using downlighting as the sort of using these darker cooler lights like white and blue lights to simulate moonlight, but you're saying that that's actually part of the problem for insects and for humans and stuff, and that we should be using warmer lights, especially for these, even for uplights and especially for downlights, or does it matter?
You should be using warmer color temperature for everything to be dark sky compliant.
Okay, that's good for clarity. Let's see. Oh, Francesca's asking, she says it is tough to downlight when you have a new landscape with immature trees. Do you recommend changing the uplights to downlights at some point?
I always recommend having both personally, but as soon as the tree is established, if it's in the ground for a year and it's healthy and your arborist says, yay, you're good, then it's okay to put lights on them. It depends on how thick the branches are. And I never like to do it like after they're newly planted, though. I do like them to be in the ground until somebody blesses it, and it's a minimum of 6 months. I prefer to wait for a year to mount lights, make sure they're really healthy.
Okay. I was actually really surprised to see so much uplighting in
Mama's
these.
coming in the back way.
Deborah, can you mute yourself,
Mama's
please?
coming the other way. Come to the back door.
Deborah
That's where
Chrisman.
Mama.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, just because so what you said is if we do want to use uplights or wall washing or something like that, we should turn it off at 10 o'clock ideally, or 11, or just only have it on when we really need it and not like every night.
Correct.
Okay.
And I have a lot of clients. I actually have a client story that can help you with that. If we have a second, my client calls me up, has a property in Hancock Park, right down, in LA. And so beautiful, lovely, big property, old historic home, it's gorgeous. And we have a lighting control system, and she has big dogs. So she walks them in the morning, and she loves her landscape lighting. She has this balcony off of the primary suite, and enjoys the landscape lighting in the evenings. But she calls me up and she's like, "Oh my goodness, I think our lights are staying on all night." Now, I've been working with this client for a while. I've educated them. I'm like, "We don't want to contribute to the problem. I understand that you have these acorn lights that are on the street right outside, but there's nothing we can do about the city, but we don't want to be contributing. And we also don't want to be paying, you don't want to be paying for all that energy, like all the extra lighting for no reason." And she's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So they know this, right? So she calls me up and she's like, "Oh my gosh, our lights are staying on all night." And I say, "Oh my goodness, let me fix that." And I get in their lighting control system and I can't figure it out. It looks like it's fine. I call the controls guy and I'm like, "Hey, did I check this right? Is this everything working right?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's all good." And and I call her back. I'm like, "What time are you going to bed?" "Oh," she's like, "It's the winter. I go to bed early now." I said, "Okay, what time?" She's "About 9:30. I said, "Okay." "All right. What time are you waking up?" She's like, "You know what? We've been sleeping late too." So they get up at 6 o'clock or 6:30, normally. And so she just didn't realize that she was going to bed before her landscape lights turned off at 10 and before they turned on at 6 a.m. She
Well,
was
I think
sleeping through
sorry.
it.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. That's been a really wonderful presentation. There was another question about lighting for sloped sites or terraced landscapes without causing glare and spill. And then, uplights. So yes, the uplights we just addressed, and then there was also a guide for how much little total light should be in an area. So I would like to direct everyone to the Dark Skies website. I put the link in the chat at the top. And also Mike and Ruben are here. I was wondering if you have anything else you'd like to add. Everyone, sorry, to all of our attendees, if you want to take a break, we'll just keep chatting here for a minute, but our next speaker will start. It will be David from FX Luminaire, and he'll be starting it about just after 5, like maybe 5:05, 5:10. And he's also going to be able to talk about control because FX has a lot of wonderful options for that. Mike and Ruben, do you have anything you'd like to add to Catherine's presentation?
Well, that was pretty extensive, and I really don't. I'll just say that the house in the background, my background is my home, and there are lights that are really good downlights underneath the deck that you can't see much of here. But yeah, you can see them from the street down below where this picture was taken. So I don't know what you can do about that. Maybe Catherine has a solution.
I'll help you with it, Mike. We want to make sure they're on a dimmer and make sure I want some daytime pictures of your stuff. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, well, we only turn them on when we go outside so we can see the mountain lions, and that's about
Oh, well,
it.
that's a good reason to have them. And that seems like a good solution.
Yeah, I just don't leave them on.
Yeah.
That's a good approach, Mike. I like it. It's sticks with one of the principles. Is it useful? In that moment, yes, it is. Right. So yeah, actually do have a little bit of input in regards to just the usage overall, right? I think that having the practice of looking at your local ordinance, right, in terms of what exactly is with going to be compliant, right? Because sometimes uplight for landscape purposes is not going to be permitted, right, in regards to exterior lighting. So that might be something to look at as well when it comes to designing for your clients. But overall, I think Catherine did an excellent presentation. Thank you so much on informing us and spending the time to do so. But yeah, I just think maybe just being sure that we're looking at our local ordinance and we're in compliance, and we're not going to, put our client into a certain debacle, right?
Ruben, are you aware of local ordinances in different parts of California that we should all know about? Because I'm not.
I'm not too sure about an actual whole statewide ordinance, but it's more common than you think when it comes to your local municipality, right? Even a big city like Los Angeles or the county, there are some exterior lighting ordinances at play where you have some limit on restrictions of like your lumen output, the way that it's facing downward, fully shielded, no glare, light trespass. Light trespass is when you have you can't shine a certain amount of foot candles beyond your own property. So uh,
Ruben, can you tell us where we could find out more about those things? Because I didn't see those on your website, and we'd be happy to share them. Like, is that
yeah,
is that usually found on like county or city websites? Because I've never seen that, nor have I seen any enforcement of any of that.
right, exactly. Enforcement is a big thing when not just here and local, it's pretty much all the states, right? Let me share a link and I'll drop in the chat if anything.
Okay. And then David, I saw you turn on your camera for a minute. If you're ready to go, I think let's give everyone like just a couple more minutes before you start your presentation in case anyone
Love
needs
it.
to go get some
Fantastic.
water. Okay. While we're waiting then for that, I guess, do you have any oh, Catherine, if you're still here, do you have any suggestions about the hillside sloped or targeted landscapes without causing glare or spill? Is
I
that a
think
downlight?
it's a downlight and using path lights that are not glary underneath is like a recommendation. And I know that it takes some finesse and some experimentation before you get out to the job site. Depends on the hillside. I actually have a lecture that covers that.
Okay.
Where you're looking up a staircase and what to do about it.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
And just for everyone else, after David speaks today, we're going to be joined by our other lighting company, Corona Lighting. Steve Waller is going to be speaking about Corona's new flat lux features, which actually works on Bluetooth mesh instead of Wi-Fi. So just so you all know if you are able to stay after David's presentation. But yeah, I guess, David, if you want to go ahead and get started, I will post your information and your link in the chat now.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. And great presentation earlier on by Mike and Catherine. So awesome. And big thing, just to follow on from that conversation, you always want to get with your city. If I'm working in Pasadena, if I'm working in Malibu, if I'm working in Santa Monica, it's the cities are very, very good at letting you know what their local ordinances are. And they can be slightly different from the International Dark Skies Associations. Sometimes they will not allow a certain amount of light, and so always follow the local ordinances, and that's a great place to start. Okay. So do we see the screen? Do you see my screen? Just to confirm. Hopefully, yes. Okay. I'm going to go for it anyway. Somebody will let me know.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute for a second.
No problem. All right. Awesome. So, boom. Lighting is actually, it's an emotional thing, right? When we look at this could be up in Encino, it could be up in the valley, it could be all over the place. This is what I would not call dark sky compliant. The house is beautiful. They probably spent a bunch of money on it, but hopefully the people on this call, this is not what you do for outdoor lighting, right? It invokes a reaction. It invokes, it's probably most of it is high voltage lighting. But to me, this is not good lighting design. On the flip side of that, you start looking at this, your eyes become a lot softer. It is not truly dark skies because on those columns, there is some uplights going on there. So in retrospect, I would actually have them come off the eaves and come down instead of up. But if you start looking at the color temperature of it, it is closer to that 2700 degree Kelvin. And it just, to me at least, it feels like a much more warm, much more elegant, much more inviting environment to be hanging out in. Okay, so Catherine talked about levels of light. So we don't have to have bright lights everywhere, but if you want to do have brighter lights, you can go and create focal points. Working from backwards from there, medium lighting, go through your transitions or your visual directions. But then the soft lights can be the path lights, the task lights, and especially the down lights. So what happens is a lot of people will make the mistake. They will go off and they're like, hey, I want to do a lighting design. And they have the bad habit of just putting bright lights everywhere. Okay, soft light, pretty easy. Path lights, down lights, task lights, and safety. And here's a couple of examples of it. And the big thing from us, and I was taught very, very early on, is you want to always try and see the effect of the light and not the source of the light. So if you look at those stairs coming down, you actually kind of don't know where the light is coming from. But what you've done is you've taken care of the safety aspect of the design. So you want to be able to transition from the top of those stairs all the way to the bottom safely and securely. That's a slightly whiter light there. Again, a lot of these, that's probably close to that 3000 K. And the one to the right is back to that 2700 K. And then what they've done here is they've got a beautiful wooden railing. But the most important part of that design is actually not at the home, it's they get to look over the lights of the city. Okay, so beautiful lighting can be done with warm color temperatures and down lighting. Okay, accent lighting. As Catherine said earlier, the pathway lights are not in the pathway. What they're doing is they're actually inset into the landscape. So they're lighting the plant material. And oh, by the way, they might cast some light into the pathways, but we're not especially lighting the pathway. And this is just some really, really good lighting design. Okay, again, pretty easy task and function. People want to be able to cook with fire. They want to go and hang out. And if it's a fire pit, if you've got your barbecue going, if you're like me, I like to go and cook with fire and outside of the house, but I still need to be able to see if my steaks are well done or if they're on the medium rare side. So you want to have some task lighting. The big thing with the task and function lighting, you turn it on, you would thoroughly enjoy it, but at the end of the day, you just turn it back off again. I don't need to go and have my barbecue lit every evening, but when I'm out there, I want my task to be cooking with fire. Okay, medium light. So as Catherine identified earlier, there are directionality. You want to only get to something. You can see something in the background there. That's a slightly higher amount of light, but getting to there, they've used lights coming out of the trees to come down through, walk down the pathway safely, securely to go and get to your destination. That's kind of a medium light source. Playing with lighting techniques, color temperature. Now, color temperature has become the kind of an interesting conversation. I've always gone and used 2700 as a lighting temperature thing. But if you go in, and we're going to talk about creating scenes later and be able to turn things on and off, it might be that like, hey, I am a big Dodgers fan. And so when the Dodgers win the World Series, I want to go and turn on my lights. But you go and have them as a temporary light, but you also want to be able to turn them off. You might have beautiful plant materials and different colors, and you can go and give a slight hue to that plant to really make it pop. The important things are fixture placement. So again, you see the effect of it on that plant, not the source of the light. The number of lights per tree. Smaller plant material require less lights. And shadowing. Shadowing happens naturally in nature. And it's something that, as good lighting design, we want to take care of all of those things, all these different techniques. Okay, downlighting, pretty easy. It's not rocket science. We are recreating moonlight. And if you look in the foreground, if you look at the pathway, That's just a beautiful place to walk. That's something you can have a glass of wine. You can be with your significant other. You can transition through that area and be safe and secure. And there's no tripping hazards. And it's also, to me, that looks like a beautiful lighting design. Okay. Where you place your lights is important. So we got down lighting. So if we go and place the light at the back or some lights on the side or the front, you will go and have different amounts of light that come out. Backlight, level 1. The foreground, boom, it's just a nice soft light. Transition light, medium levels of light. So you place the light, you simply have the same light level, but your placement is on the sides. Higher focal point lights. So it might be that specimen tree that your customers have come through and they've spent a lot of money on. By simply moving that light that in the first slide from the back to the front, you instead of going from a low level of light, you've now created a front light. And these are all different techniques in lighting design. Okay. Downlighting. Now, this is a slide, and what they've done here is that they've actually used a cooler color temperature of light to go and create a downlight here. You'll see on the sidings of the building, they've used a warm light, but recreating moonlight in here, if this was to be dark skies compliant, we would actually just go and simply either change the lamp or the lens on that. We would then just change it to a warmer color temperature. And again, what we want to do is we want to mimic nature. Sunlight, moonlight, downlights coming through. Again, the most important part of this, it's in a very dark tile or a dark stone there. We still want to be able to walk up and down those stairs safely. We want to feel comfortable walking through there. You could have, as I said earlier, a glass of wine. You could be having a conversation walking through that space. But the important part to do is to be able to walk through that space comfortably and securely. So you want to pick some products. Dark skies makes things interesting. So you'll go and find that pathway lights, generally speaking, all go and fit into the dark skies range. They can either have a lamp or an LED board. But some of the things that you want to have is you don't want to have the light going up in the air or light just going out in various directions. You want to be able to control the amount of light, and you want to be able to control the color temperature. Okay. Dark skies compliant on this. This is a shameless plug for us. What we can do is we can jump online. You would go to products and you would simply come down into the compliance section and you can go and pick the fixtures that are dark sky compliant from FX Luminaire. I know Steve's going to talk later. He may have a different way of finding his fixtures that fit on his, but this is just a nice, easy way to find them on our website. Okay. Again, dark skies, we can mount them to steel structures. This happens to be on a nice, clean fence. The light comes down, very clean, very safe. We can have them hanging lights from a structure, from the trees, if you so wish. So these are different ways of doing downlights where you sit there and maybe I've got a smaller tree and I want to go and put some things in there, and a different way of doing it. Okay. Classic pathway lights. Again, you'll see the hoods and the shrouds on them. Again, they're in the landscape. Well, what they're doing is they're lighting the plant material and spilling light into walkways and steps to go and make it safe. Hardscapes and architecture. We sit there and pop them underneath the cap. I know that Mike was talking about earlier about having lights being underneath his decking. Same kind of idea. And of course, the down lighting to go and illuminate those spaces. Okay, so they don't all have to look like a downlight spotlight on the right. They can be hanging lights. They can be lights that go and hang from the ceiling. They can be attached to the ceiling. They can be attached to walls. So think about hiding the fixtures. Where would you hide them? Under the eaves, underneath arbors, patio covers, trees, hanging lights. And again, what we're trying to do is we're going to create some moonlight. And we want to go and have the task of what you want to do. In the top right there, you'll see a table there. And their idea is they want to be able to have conversation. They may wish to eat. So all of those things will determine the amount of light that they're looking for. If you want to go and read a paper in that space, obviously, if you want to read a book, you're going to need a higher light level. If you want to go and eat or have conversations, you can bring that light level down. Okay. So an interesting part of this is power and control. So we want to go and turn the lights on at sunset. There's no reason to go and have lights that are on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You want at a very minimum, you want to be able to turn it on with a photoelectric eye or a transformer or a timer that can turn lights on at sunset. And then if you go to bed at 10 o'clock, there is no reason in your backyard to go and leave the lights on after you go to bed. In your front yard, there may be a reason or a need to go and have them for safety and security, but you want control systems that can adapt to that. Okay, so what we go and do at FX is we can have the simple on-off. We can create zones. And if you think about those zones, is what is important? What are the priorities in your home? I've had people that I've worked with that have been followed home at night, and their most important thing is the safety. I've had the other people, as we get older, our eyes don't perform as well. So maybe we want to be able to walk up the stairs. We want to get to the front door. So we go and need it for the safety side. And again, we all put in beautiful landscapes. We want to go and create the aesthetics that go with it. Okay. So what we can do is with our fixtures, they are groupable. So I have these different groups here. And we can have a group with multiple fixtures, or we can even have just the single fixture be its own group. Now, easy. What we work with currently, you turn your lights on at sunset, everything is on at 100%. But is that really what we want? How about at a certain time of the night, because it's not being used, we just turn group 1 off, we turn the group 2 down to 50, turn everything else down to 50%. Maybe that's a better way of doing it. I'm going to call this maybe a normal evening situation that you're in. Okay? Maybe as the night goes on, hey, I still want to go and keep some lights on. So if I've got teenage kids that are coming home at 2 in the morning, I still want them to be able to get to the home safely and securely. So I go and turn down some lights to 0, and I can turn my other ones down to 40, or in this case, 25%. So you can actually go and play with your light levels, create scenes with both grouping and dimming. For me, the biggest thing that happened with LED lights was the ability to dim. I use them all the time, and it doesn't matter what manufacturer you use. If you can sit there and get the correct amount of light coming into your landscapes, you win. I'll go and sit down with Julie, and I'll go and sit down with everybody else, and we will actually go and start from 0, and we will go and brighten it until you say, yep, that is absolutely perfect. It doesn't matter if it's at 63% or 27%. We've got the right amount of light falling into that space, onto the plant material. The hardscapes can be a dark granite. They could be a white marble. Obviously, with a white marble, that's highly reflective because light colors reflect light. So we don't need the same amount of light as if it were a dark slate or a dark stone there. So we want to be able to get the correct amount of light onto that. And the biggest thing that I go and see in landscape when I go and visit properties is people tend to overlight. And especially when they first start out in their lighting, as you get better and better and better with your lighting, Catherine will go and tell you, the better that you get at it, the less light that you need. All right. When I go and speak at different places, I go and give the example of McDonald's. McDonald's, you walk down the parking lot, masses of light. You walk into McDonald's, masses of light. Why? Their business model is fast food. So they want to have a tremendous amount of light. They don't want to have any shadows. They want bright light, but they also want you to go and eat, and they want you to leave. The flip side of that is your favorite Italian restaurant that you go to. You walk in there, there might only be a candle at the table, and your eyes are a beautiful thing. What will happen is after a very short amount of time, the light level will be just perfect. You can have a nice dinner. And that's kind of where, if you want to do your lighting design, I would actually like you to go and design a little bit more towards that Italian restaurant than the McDonald's. Okay, so summary of design. Always identify what, why, and how. Okay, lighting invokes feelings. And again, as I spoke on earlier there, those feelings could be romance. It could be entertainment. It could be safety and security. Okay, another one you got, what feels good to you might not feel good to others. I've worked with clients that live on top of the hill, and they go and tell me that, hey, I'm on top of the hill. I want to go and have the brightest lights in the neighborhood. And so what our job is to educate them. So we go and say that, hey, elegance, understated, all of those things are what your neighbors will be looking for you. And when I walk onto properties, the two biggest things that are outside of my scope of work are quite often the lights that are attached to the homes and the light levels. I always go and ask them, do you have a dimmer? And I go and start and I turn it down by 20%. Then I'll turn it down by another 20%. And all of a sudden, the glare softens. If they have pilasters, those lights that are sit on top of pillars at the end of the driveway, I get them to go and take the glass lens out, put an opaque lens in there, and I bring the candle power or the brightness down on those to an elegant source. And it doesn't happen all the time. I can go out, I can go through many neighborhoods and many high-end neighborhoods, and I will always go and find that the biggest problem that you go and see is they will go and see the source of the light, not the effect of it, and people just generally overlight it. And it's crazy how often we see that. There is a ton of bad lighting out there, and I thoroughly appreciate you guys for coming on and listening to Catherine and Mike and myself and Steve and if you can do good lighting, boom, clients just they don't know why, but they just feel really, really good. Okay. And then matching natural landscape hues. When I go and use color, and I use it infrequently, but you will go and have that Japanese maple that at certain times of year that can be just a gorgeous orange. And I can put a slight hue on that and make it really pop. So you can actually play with color, but just be very careful with it. When we go and have our fancy lighting systems, we can create scenes. So those scenes, again, can be romance. They can be entertaining. They can be your favorite football team. They can be people celebrate Christmas or other events, Halloween. You can turn them on, but what you'll do is you'll actually go and turn them on for that evening or for a short period of time, and you bring them back to what they want. I've had some clients there that will have downlights only. Perfect. That's the right amount of light. They may or may not turn them off at a certain time of the evening. They might go and have it, they change it to a late evening mode where the amount of light comes down even less. But they're like, hey, we love to entertain. So what we do is we set it up with them through their apps, through their Wi-Fi, through their home automation systems. And we go and say, we do not discourage you from entertaining, but what we want to be able to do is we really want to be able to go and control the amount of light coming out. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for hanging out. I know it's been kind of a long afternoon. I want to give Steve some time. And I did see there's a couple of questions that pop up along the way. So Julie, if you want to fire away or if you want to go and have Steve speak for a little while, you tell me how you'd like to do this.
Stephanie, do you want to go into any of the questions now, or do you want to wait for Steve?
Oh, well, I think let's see, let's just quickly start with Nan's question, because this is something I've had trouble with too. So she asked, how do you wire a tree for downlights that hang out from the branches? So I would add to that I've also noticed that over the years, the trees like to pop out the screws and we don't want to girdle them. And there's all sorts of reasons that trees like to spit out lights. So
okay. Yep.
have some advice on that.
Okay, so a couple of things that I like to do. So always be very careful with staples on trees. So trees have this habit of just gobbling up staples and they just don't work well at all. I always make sure that when you run wires up a tree, that you make sure that you can wiggle those wires sideways up and down, because if they are tight on the bark, then what will happen is that the tree will gobble them up. But you also got to understand, anytime I'm doing lights in trees, you've got to go and have them understand that there is the need for maintenance. If the guys come in and if they trim the trees, I've had people that want to go and light coral trees. And I'll go and say, you know what, I love your trees, but please don't put lights in them because they grow so vigorously through their growing cycle that you end up just chopping up the lights. When you go and put lights on the branches, I work with a lot of arborists. And so I don't like to put bands around branches to hold them. I like to go and have it with a tree box. And then most of the arborists through Santa Barbara, Montecito, and all of these high-rent districts, they are okay with you putting in a lag type screw into there and then being able to adjust it every 6 months or a year and a half, whatever it is, to go and back it out as the trees grow. In my bio, you will go and see I work for a gentleman by the name of Bill Loughlin. He's kind of one of the old originators of outdoor lighting, and he had his favorite orange trees. And he would go and tell his guys, there is no way on God's green earth that you'll ever put a screw into my tree. I'm like, I have no problem with that. So what he would actually do is he would take some silicon type gel. He would go and affix it to he would put a dollop of it on the trunk. He would wait for it to start to set. He would push his wire into there, and then he would take some electrical or masking tape, cover it over until it dried. And that way he did not interfere with any of the branching structure of that tree. And I still use that, and it's a great way of doing that.
Thank you.
Very
Wait,
small
we have
branches.
one of, just to interrupt you, sorry. Sorry to interrupt you, but in addition to that is Valerie asks, how do you avoid spooky effects when downlighting through trees? And so I think we saw a lot of pictures with the leaf patterns on the
Yep.
path and stuff, which I thought looked really cool, but
Right.
I can see how that could be spooky for some
Yeah,
people.
so you've got to be careful. It's spooky versus mimicking nature, right? So if you want to go and get rid of those shadows, what you would do is you will put a spotlight underneath the branch, and you will just end up with a downlight oval shaped, conical shape on the ground. If you want to recreate nature, as we do with sunshine and moonlight, then you will take that light and you'll bring it above the branching to create those shadows in there. Um, I think the warm color temperatures help with the spookiness of it. Sometimes what people feel is if it's in those blue tones,
Right.
then it feels a little bit more spooky. If it's in that 24, 27, 3000 degree Kelvin, then the spookiness tends to go away a little bit. But I happen to my favorite form of lighting is downlighting. And then we spoke about it earlier. You come in there and you have the lot that's completely scraped. You bring in some 15s and 24s, hopefully a couple of 36s and 48s, but usually not the case because we're all doing landscape at the end of the job and what gets cut in the budget, but your beautiful plant material. So I've also had people that I work for a landscape architect, and what he would do is he would attach his lights to the poles that you use to stop the trees blowing over. So he would simply attach them to them, and then after a period of time, he would inform the residents that he is going to come back, and when the trees are large enough to go and have those down lights, he would simply take the lodge poles out because you no longer need them because the trees are large enough. And then that time he would attach them to the trees. So that was
That is a
answered the
great
question that was
solution.
early on.
All right, I do want to give Steve a chance to talk. So,
Absolutely.
Dave, thank you very much. That was been really, really helpful. And everyone, you probably already have David's cell phone. I did put his contact information in the chat, and he's very approachable. And Dave, if I can speak for you, I've called you a million times from job sites and asked crazy questions. So don't be afraid to do that and email him if you have other questions to follow up.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. That was very informative. I really appreciate it. David, even though we have a lot of the same fixtures, a lot of the manufacturers, we have a lot of the same members of the family, right? We all have path lights and spotlights and downlights and deck lights and all that stuff, right? We all have lamps. The good news is there's enough business out there for everybody, and people are different when it comes to their tastes and the choices they make and the styles. So there's enough products to go around, and that's a good thing. You need to have these options in your belt to be able to pull them out whenever you need them. So the first thing I just wanted to show you, because a lot of the fixtures I'm going to show you will accept most of these LEDs, and these are the smart LEDs. They're the Fiat Lux actually series for the LEDs we sell. We sell these in a fixture, which are a lifetime warranty fixture that have 10-year modules, 10-year replaceable modules, or we also sell the lamps. These are great for your customers that have existing systems that have, the fixtures are working already. Why do they need a brand new system? They don't, right? So you can get these lamps, especially, well, if it's not if it's an integrated fixture, but you can get these lamps if they're replacing their MR16s or their T3s. You can get these, you can pair them to your app. It's a Bluetooth mesh product, versus a Wi-Fi product, right? So that's another important thing that you want to pre-qualify with your customers is what's important to them, right? What kind of system do they want? These lamps give a lot of flexibility. We don't market this product first and foremost, even though you see color changing right there below the lamp. We don't introduce it as a color changing product right off the bat. We introduce it as a smart product. The sales technique and the pitches, things like anything the way you introduce the products to your customers are very important. If I was to ask a customer if they're interested in a color changing product for their landscape lighting, 99% of the time the customers are going to go to a no, right? They're not really thinking or putting the landscape lighting. They don't really want a holiday scene. They're not really going for that. They want subtlety, they want elegance, they want that added sense of security. And so what this allows you to do is when you introduce it as a smart product, it allows you to get out the features that are important, right? The first one would be the dimming. So you can dim these down to 15 lumens, right? You can raise the MR16 up to 500 lumens if you need it. The PAR 36 is up to 1200 lumens, so they can be bright, but they don't have to be. So when it's dimming, you can group them just like David talked about. So you can create up to 20 groups in our app for each home. And so you can have your path lights group and you can have your downlight and your uplights, all of those in different groups. You can have them all together or individually, right? You can operate them all individual or as groups. And so when it comes to that, the dimming, the grouping, setting scenes, holiday scenes if they want it, they dance to music. You can have multiple users. You can get out all these features that are important. And by the way, it happens to change colors if you ever want that, right? Um, what people don't understand is once they get the colors, they do love playing with them, right? But most of the time of the year, they're going to have them set and dialed in to that warm light. And when people come over and they have a party or they have a game day, whatever it is, they might use the color changing options, but absolutely not the first and foremost important feature of our products, right? Of any of these. You can turn this Bluetooth products, you can turn our lamps and our Bluetooth products, our Bluetooth fixtures into a hybrid Wi-Fi system with our gateway that sits there, that CX-BTG, and that connects to your Wi-Fi and allows you to now be at the grocery store if you want to operate the lights, turn them on and off, schedule. And you can also talk to Google, Alexa, or Siri. If a lot of your customers already use that in the house, they might want to create those commands. Hey, Alexa, turn front yard lights to 50%, right? Or whatever they want to do. So, with that said, if they don't want Bluetooth, obviously 2700K is the most important. I mean, that's what is very nice on our eyes, right? It's not too bright. 2700K or even 3000 will show more of the true colors of your landscape at night. Once you get up to those 4000, 5000 Kelvin temperatures, the glare and just the washed out features, how bright that light is, you don't really see the true colors at night. And as David mentioned and earlier, you don't want to drive past a house that has lighting and wonder what those fixtures look like, right? You really shouldn't be thinking of the fixtures. You should be thinking of the scene, the landscape scene, how amazing it looks, and without trying to make something look like Vegas, right? And those are it's very important that your customers know that you're not because lighting adds up quickly, and a lot of customers are intimidated by lighting proposals and lighting designs because they're not too sure. They know they want light and they've seen a lot of really great examples of it, but they're not too sure how to create that. So being able to set their mind at ease by telling them about the 12-volt system and how easy it is how flexible it is, how easy it is to add as you go, and that less is more, is very important, right? Because there are a lot of designs out there, as we all have seen, that you go, oh, they did everything at once. They spent a lot of money. I know they regret it, right? And so you can highlight the basic areas. You can tell your customers, look, I'm not here to tell you what you want. You got to tell me what you don't want, right? But when it comes to my goal here is to give you a system that you can grow over time if you want to do that. And what that allows you to do is highlight the main features, in whatever in your front yard or your backyard, and whether it's 2 weeks or 2 years, you can add on to those dark corners and you can say, well, maybe we need one over here or we need one over there versus spending too much and having too much light and not being able to return those fixtures and just regretting the whole process. And so what these LEDs in front of you, the reason why I put them on here is that these are not the smart LEDs. These are amber. So if somebody is even pickier, the amber going at a 143 lumens, very low lumen, at a 5 watts isn't a great average, and you can get a very nice warm look if they want that. I like to use 2200K, 2000, 2200 Kelvin, for lanterns. The candlelight effect on the lanterns when they're hanging from the trees looks really nice. But again, lighting is subjective. Just because I might like that doesn't mean that your customers are going to like that. And so everyone's different. And you are going to meet a handful of people that say, I want it to be as bright as possible, because when I'm out and I tell them I'm not trying to make your place look like Vegas, there are a handful of people that'll say, well, I like that, and you'll go, okay, let me kind of educate you as to why we don't want to make this whole place look like that. But if they demand it, what are you going to do? And so when it comes to that, those are just a few of the LEDs we sell.
From Ariel, what materials or metals you recommend for places with intense sunlight? She's in Colorado, or they're in Colorado anyway. And obviously, we have intense sunlight in California as well. So, Mike or Stephen, do you want to go first about material selection for that?
I go to brass. Brass is my favorite for any of those harsh environments, especially here on the coast. Brass is great. If you can find a really good warranted machined aluminum, right? That might be okay, but I would always try to go for a brass fixture in harsh weather.
David, do you have any?
Yeah, so as far as materials go, being in Colorado, you do have to be careful of snow, and sometimes what they'll do is they'll go and salt the roads, and so you want something that's not going to break down. Some of it all comes down to budget. If we're in the high rent district, sometimes the needs or the wants are something of a little bit more higher end, and it could be a brass or a copper. Again, very much like Steve, I think both of us, I know I can speak to FX. We've got a 10-year warranty for aluminum, brass, copper, powder coat. Steve was saying he's got a few different grades as far as their warranties go, but landscape lighting is becoming pretty good. And then again, if for myself and for Steve, if you're in Colorado or if you're in Santa Monica, if you've got a problem with a fixture, and heaven forbid it does go bad, we stick to our warranties very, very well. Inland, it's more of the aluminum. On the coastal areas, sometimes it's the brass and copper. I do work with my friends over in Hawaii, and they just don't want brass. They don't want aluminum on their island because they've had bad experiences in the past. But that's how I would answer that.
All right, thank you. And Magda asks if, I think this is for Steve, if your app works for both Android and iPhone, but David.
It does.
Okay, and David, your apps work for both too,
Yep,
right?
Yeah, iPhone, Droid, yep, all of the above. Yes.
Okay, and then let's see, we have, Deborah also asked if she can explain what Bluetooth does and if it's not wired. And I tried to answer that in the chat. But David, do you have a Bluetooth option, or is everything Wi-Fi still with FM?
So we can do Bluetooth. Different manufacturers have different ways of communication. We happen to go down the Wi-Fi route, and that's with our Luxor system. We do it through Wi-Fi. Steve and Corona, they go and they choose to do it through Bluetooth with some Wi-Fi enhancements. And it gets a little bit techy, I guess. But if anybody individually is like, hey, what are the pluses and minuses of that? We can spend some time there. If you've got a particular site, then you've got to, Steve would go out there and check on range and distance, and we can do the same thing with Wi-Fi based control or app based, or whether the system's being hooked into a smart system, the Lutron, Crestron, all of those good fun home automation systems, or it was just simply just through an app. So it's kind of a long discussion, but anybody after this call that wants to go down that rabbit hole, love chatting away about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I just have something to add to that. Just to say about FX, I've known David before I worked for Corona Lighting, and FX makes great products, right? They really do. And so in a world where you just start trying to find what your customer wants, you just that's what you're going to do, is you're going to find out whether the Wi-Fi system is what they want, right? Or whether they want a Bluetooth system, and you're going to, either way, you have a great quality product. I have nothing bad, and I've even told David this last time I saw him in the field. I said, I have nothing bad to say about FX, and I never have, right? It is a great product to use.
Thanks,
It's just a
Steve.
different animal, and when it comes to the compatibility he was talking about, those are, whether it's a Crestron or a Lutron or Control 4, those are important questions to ask your customers too, because certain products like ours might not be available, or might not be compatible with Control 4 and Lutron and all that stuff. But then maybe, FX might have more compatibility built in for that, since it's a Wi-Fi based system. So those are important things to ask your customers.
Okay, thank you. I have one other question. I know, David, with your fixtures, when we have a Luxor and we want to program them, we have to actually like plug in the fixtures into the controller to get them into the zone, right? Is that correct when we're installing them?
So you have the two choices.
Oh, right,
You can either plug them into the face pack of the controller, and you could create groups 1 through 2 or 50. Doesn't matter. But we also have a light assignment module, which
right.
we've had in the past, and that was less than awesome. So we've actually literally 2 weeks ago came out with what we're calling as a Luma key. And so now you can set off all your lights, and then you can come back and group them after the fact. And that's
The ones
actually
that are up in the trees and
up in the
all
trees and on.
wired,
Yeah,
you
yep,
can, is
yep.
it like the Wi-Fi assignment module, like you
It,
walk around and point it at them?
yes, it's like that, but it can be via the cloud. There's a bunch of enhancements that they found that both, and actually we got it through our parent company, through the Hunter system, where they actually have wireless irrigation valves. We went
Right.
and adopted their same technology, so
Wonderful.
we just kind of went down that road. But again, that's little bit more specific to our product, and I know Steve's got his way of grouping and controlling his as well. So each manufacturer does it slightly differently. But on that specific question, yes, we can do it from the face pack, or yes, we can also do it through what we're calling our Luma key. Is the name
So
of the product.
breaking news, new product.
Oh, yes.
Great. So Steve, with the individual light bulbs, if we wanted to retrofit an existing system with the smart bulbs, do we have to somehow, like, how do we get the app to know which bulb is which, and how do we figure, like, I assume that that's a complicated process, or is it relatively, in 2 minutes?
It depends on how many fixtures you have, right? I mean, if you have 20 fixtures, it's generally going to be an easy process. If you have 200 fixtures, the tedious part will be, it's not very difficult to pair them. They pair quickly. It's a
Okay.
Bluetooth mesh product, so a lot of people think, well, Bluetooth, the range can't be that great, right? But mesh technology changed that years ago, where all these devices are talking to each other. And so the difference, one of the main differences between a Wi-Fi system like the Luxor and a Bluetooth mesh system like our Fiat Lux, is that the brains of the Fiat Lux products are in each unit. They're in each fixture. So the commands are coming from your app to the fixture, right? And you're grouping those together, and you're pairing them first, and you're grouping them together in whatever groups you want. But each fixture and even the lamps have an antenna on them, right, for reception, so they can communicate. And so what we recommend for every 10 lamps or every 10 fixtures is you get one of our Bluetooth Wi-Fi, our Bluetooth extenders. They're antennas. They have the ground stake just like the fixtures, or you can mount them up high on a flush mount if you need to get them off the ground. And those antennas have 260-foot range, and they're line of sight antennas. So If someone's got an acre, 2 acre yard, these lights are going to work great because they're all going down the line talking to each other, right? And so that's, again, like David said, it's a longer conversation of how you program them, and you're going to label each individual one, but you do that from our app. You pair them, you see each module in the app, and you can go into each individual one and customize those lights, right?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that both of you are available for all of us as we try to do this for our own installations if we need help, or you can guide us to your tech support. David,
Absolutely.
has there been any significant changes in the app control?
Yes. So we've gone through. Yes. We've got both on-site and we've got cloud-based. So we work through Amazon Web Services. So that's probably the biggest thing. So you do not have to be on the property, and just the enhancement, just little things that you can see. You can take, you can name your programs. We've just gone through, and over time, just we continue to just clean them up. When they first came out, they were very kind of computer savvy. That's the kind of, because that's the people
Right.
that were building it. Now it's actually becoming a lot easier for the lay person. So now you can do things like saving the program. So heaven forbid your homeowner comes along and just gets in there and messes everything up. Well, you can bring back your version of it. So we've
Great.
just made enhancements to it as what we've done.
Wonderful. So I just want to wrap all of this up. Thank you all for being here, all of our speakers, and for all of our attendees that have come for this whole evening. I wanted to say that lighting, since I started designing lighting systems over 20 years ago, it's changed a lot. And I think the main things, takeaways for dark skies is that no longer do we have to set our controllers to go on at sunset and go off at sunrise or at midnight or something. We can control them now from our phones. We can control individual fixtures. We can set up zones. We can have the lights that we really need on. Hopefully for dark skies compatibility there and support, they're going off at 10 o'clock, except for maybe a few that are staying on until 11 or 12. Obviously, if we're having a party or doing or entertaining in the evening, we can have them on later, but we can turn them on and off with our phones. So that's easy to do. And then we have also learned that we need to think about the Kelvin, the color temperature of our fixtures, and moving away from the moonlight blue fixtures and towards the warmer amber fixtures at lower foot candles. So I think, David, at one point you were talking about 35-watt fixtures, and I think that's back from when we had watts instead of LEDs. Like now we're like 1 and 2 and
Right.
5
Yep,
watts.
yep, yep. So yeah. And I should have said 35-watt equivalents. I
Right.
apologize for that.
That's okay. I knew what you were talking about because I remember buying 50-watt light fixtures
Uh-huh.
and then having to deal with, the voltage drop on the wire and having multiple transformers on large properties. So some of
And
us
the size
remember
of the
that.
wire.
Or the
Now
1200-watt
exactly.
transformers.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. It's a different story now for everyone. But so color temp, foot candles, and color light intensity, controlling our fixtures. And I just want to I put the dark skies um website on early in the chat. You can just Google it, just Google dark sky. There's so much information on their website about all of the reasons this is important. And again, it's not just for human health, though that is an issue, but also our birds and our butterflies and our moths and our wildlife food chains. Like these are the reasons that we're doing this. We all want to try to support our biodiversity, and as well as be able to see the beautiful stars at night, as Mike shared with us. So thank you all again. And I think we're on time. So I'm gonna close it off. And thank you all for being here tonight.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you guys. It was amazing.
Thank you.
And this will be on our website with more information, hopefully soon.
Thank you guys very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being there.
Bye, everyone.